So it's a couple days later. One thing I wanted to share was I haven't started any new medications because immediately after that I had a surgery for my legs, and um, because I had a lingering injury that I wanted to correct, and I finally had that fixed. So I'm semi bedridden. One thing to share is that because of the surgery, I have to take antibiotics. And apparently, one of the antibiotics, in addition to turning pee and blood red, not blood, tears red, it also messes with your liver synthesis of the SSRI that I'm on, which is escitalopram. Um, the problem with that is that uh, it messes with my serotonin and probably dopamine, and as a result, it also messes with me a little bit. I need to take the antibiotics so I don't end up with a bone infection or anything. But what's weird is yesterday I was at 5 days post surgery. Today I'm at the 6 day post surgery. At the 5 days mark yesterday, for whatever reason, I was feeling. I remember I've been, excuse me, I've been mostly bedridden. I can barely walk other than with crutches. But I was feeling really motivated for some reason to do things. And I'm wondering if that's because of the way that the escitalopram is kind of being rendered slightly less effective due to the rifampicin. Sorry, let me check this. Rifampicin that's messing with its metabolism somehow in my liver. Um, So apparently, the blood circulating effects of it are actually lower, and as a result, ever since I started taking that, my levels of it are starting to come down. Now I haven't checked the half life of escitalopram, but I'm guessing it's a couple days, and which makes sense that I started feeling the negative effects of coming down from it probably 5 or 6 days after starting the rifampicin. So what this means is that my SSRI levels have been going down, and as a result, my serotonin levels have probably also started been going down, and probably messes with dopamine and other stuff in ways that I don't fully understand, although I probably should. Um, so yesterday I was feeling incredibly motivated. It could be due to a lot of things. It could be antsiness due to being bedridden, but that isn't fully like me. More likely, I would just want to just lay in bed and sleep all day. Um, where I live here in Vietnam, they're practicing for a parade, and as a result, there's a lot of planes flying acrobatics overhead where I live here in Vietnam, and so that wakes me up in the morning. And normally, I put in earplugs if something wakes me up, like a rooster or honking or whatever, but I felt compelled to do stuff. So I've been kind of more active than I would expect for myself, especially considering my general malaise. No, that's the wrong word, but fatigue and low energy and executive dysfunction and lack of motivation to do a lot of things. Um, and so that has me wondering if maybe it's an effect of the escitalopram levels going down. Um, but I didn't reach that conclusion until today, because today I'm experiencing what's known as brain zaps, and for people that have been um, on antidepressants that have accidentally taken too much or missed several dosages, depending on their medication. It could be just one missed dose makes them feel brain zaps, or it could be 5 days until they start feeling brain zaps. But whatever it is, it feels weird. It's painful, but not in a normal pain way. It's a different type of pain. It's definitely inside your head. And I've been feeling that today, day 6, since I started taking rifampicin. It has me wondering if maybe these things are connected. Now, I'm on escitalopram now, which I've been on for about 6 or 7 years, and it's worked well for me. I've been on antidepressants for a really long time. Prior to that, I was on Paxil, and Paxil at first worked pretty well for me, but after taking it for like 5 years or whatever, it stopped working. Not suddenly, but in a way that I didn't really notice. It just stopped working. Um, and then the negative side effects of Paxil, often known as the Paxil poop out, were significantly more pronounced the um, than the positives that I used to experience with it. So as a result, I was always tired. I always had brain fog. I couldn't think. It made it really difficult to get through university. Um, on top of autism, on top of ADHD, being unable to think is terrible. On top of poor memory. So yeah, being unable to think. And so eventually, it was really difficult weaning myself off Paxil. Um, as a side story, I asked for it eventually because I can't remember exact dosages, but I remember, let's just make this number up, going from like 30 to like 20 milligrams of Paxil. For whatever reason, that jump from 30 to 20 is just too jarring, too much too much pain, actual like emotional pain, too much off yourself ideation, stuff like that causes people to not want to quit Paxil. Um, and so it was really, really difficult. It took me months and months to wean myself off Paxil. And what I ended up doing was I asked my doctors to give it to me in an oral suspension. So I had liquid Paxil, and maybe every week I would lower the dose by 1 milligram. So making this number up, say I started at 30, 1 week later, I would measure out exactly 29 milligrams. 1 week later, I would measure out exactly 28 milligrams. It took a really, really long time to get off Paxil, months. And so after that, I didn't want to be on antidepressants anymore. And so I was off of them for about a year. But, you know, people that are prone to depression, such as myself, eventually some life event hits them and they can't pull themselves out of that life event like you would expect a normal person to be able to do. And so eventually I got on antidepressant again. But when I was exploring antidepressants, I said absolutely not to any of the antidepressants that I've tried before, which included sertraline, which I don't remember being that bad, but absolutely not to Paxil. It was just god awful. I was fat, kind of, for my body size. Zero energy, and brain fog was the worst of it, on top of autism, on top of ADHD, on top of poor memory. And so it made life impossible. Paxil did. Sorry for that really long side story. What I'm getting at is that when I was coming down off Paxil, I would feel these really intense brain zaps. But anyway, I'm feeling minor brain zaps now. I'm on 10 days of rifampicin to prevent any bone infections or anything crazy like that. And I hope that my good mood, my motivation stays with me. But knowing myself for as many years as I have, it's probably a neurotransmitter thing. And it's a neurotransmitter thing probably connected to how my liver is metabolizing the rifampicin and the escitalopram. Now, in the near future, I'm hoping to add an SNRI to augment escitalopram, which I kind of intend to stay on for the time being because I haven't found anything better. I'm hoping to do that, as well as hopefully give me a bit of motivation and kind of augment the antidepressive effects of escitalopram, as well as potentially trying to combat some of the ideas or some of the problems of ADHD. I've been on it before. I remember it not doing much for me, but maybe I wasn't paying attention to these specific effects. I don't remember it doing anything positive or negative to me. And I remember when I took it out of my regimen, maybe 10 years ago, I took it out because I was going through this process where I want to remove medications that aren't doing much, and I didn't feel a difference on it or off of it. However, back then I had more of a support structure in terms of university and stuff, and so I was able to kind of manage my ADHD a little bit better than I am here in the quote real world. And so maybe I actually removed a leg of this support stool that I actually needed, and now that I'm out here in the real world, I should probably look to add that back in. And over time, I'll look to add things potentially like like not modafinil, Vyvanse, or something along those lines. Even though I don't really like the way it feels, when I was in university, like a lot of us, we would take some of these medications off script and as a study drug. But I remember for me, I was still able to sleep perfectly fine when I took it. But at the same time, I was also combating brain fog and the intense fatigue of Paxil at the time. So maybe now that I'm not on Paxil, maybe things like Vyvanse or Adderall or similar medications might work a little bit more as intended. There's other things like Strattera. I remember taking it and having even more severe brain fog, but I was on Paxil back then. It might have actually been a Paxil thing. And there's other things I might want to try, like guanfacine, but we'll see what happens. When it comes to these neurochemical things, it's not even like multivariable calculus. It's literally it's just chemicals mixing and metabolizing in different ways that it's really difficult to predict how it's going to impact an individual person's chemistry, how their body's going to react to it. It's hard to know what is what, and you have to add things and titrate it, and each drug takes weeks or months to even know whether it's working or whether it would have been this way or that way. Regardless of it, it's really difficult to isolate the variables. And so when it comes to these things and you have a limited lifespan, and each change that you make takes like a year to really figure out whether it was helpful or not, medications that affect cognition, that affect personality and stuff, it's this soup in which we don't know the outcome of the soup, and it takes years. And that's why I want to document this journey, so that I and maybe others, probably mostly honestly just myself, can look back at it and see what we are actually like. As of right now, I'm on escitalopram, 20 milligrams, I believe. Let's verify. 20 milligrams. That's the only psychotropic drug that I'm on. It's easy to get here in Vietnam. Bupropion should be relatively easy to get, but some of the other medications might not be so much. And so I might have to return to the US to do that. We'll see what happens. We'll see what my physicians and psychiatrists and whoever else wants to help me along this journey suggests for me. I'm kind of desperate, honestly, because to accomplish the things I want to accomplish, to help the people I want to help, I need to be at the best possible version of myself. And that means not being a depressed person, because no matter how much someone loves or cares about you, they eventually, with the exception of maybe your mother, they eventually get tired of being around a depressed person that doesn't respect themselves. I have to be a smart person, so none of this brain fog stuff. And I have to be a motivated person. None of this sleeping 14, 16 hours a day like I used to when I was on Paxil type stuff. So yeah, we just have to work through this. And I know my brain can be sharp sometimes. I've seen it happen. So I need to figure out what variables are causing it to be that I'm almost never sharp and then occasionally am. And figure out how to make it that I can be more like the version of myself that I like to be. And then hopefully, if anyone else watches this, or at least myself, we can figure out what works best for each individual person to be the best version of themselves that they can be, the person of themselves that they like and that they're glad to wake up to. Because sometimes, honestly, it's difficult to wake up being a person, a version of yourself that you don't like, especially when you wake up and you feel already that that day is already a wash. That day is probably not going to happen. Might as well just go back to sleep and try again the next day, because You can physically force yourself to be somewhere. Like when I have brain fog, when I have extreme fatigue, I can make my body get up. I can make my body go somewhere. But let's say I had a presentation. Let's just pretend I was in university. That presentation is barely going to happen. I can make myself say words. They're not going to be the best words. Or let's say that I have a high impact employment of some sort. Probably get fired eventually because no one's going to pay a lot of money for someone that's kind of an idiot or that doesn't do a lot of work, because some days they're sharp, but most days they have brain fog. Some days they're motivated, but most days they have extreme fatigue. Some days they can think, some days they can't remember or misspell their own name, and that person is me. So that's why it kind of sucks. It's a double whammy when you have an extremely high aspiration level of things that you want to accomplish, an extremely low ability to accomplish those goals and those dreams, especially when they're even altruistic or things that would benefit not just the world, but also myself. And it's difficult to force myself to do it. To people who haven't experienced this, it sounds like complaining. People can say, oh, pull yourself up. Sometimes at some point, I just realize that things like that don't work. I've spent a long time trying to fundamentally change who I am through just sheer willpower. That's not working. I'm looking for other solutions now. And I'm also trying to work with my own psychology and my own physiology. So yeah, that's it for this video.